Welcome to B2B Sales Trends, the podcast dedicated to sales leaders in the B2B space, where we share conversations about innovative and successful sales transformations to keep you up to date on the latest trends. This podcast is brought to you by Global Performance Group.
Welcome to a special bonus edition of the B2B Sales Trends podcast. As we gear up for our 50th episode, we're taking a moment to reflect on one of the most popular questions we ask our guests. What are the top 3 traits that set elite salespeople apart? From optimism and grit to curiosity, discipline, and fearlessness, the answers reveal what today's most successful sales leaders value in themselves, their teams, and the people they hire. In this episode, you'll hear 6 different takes on that question from leaders across industries and sales models, each one shaped by real-world experience. Let's dive in. We begin with Mark Grimwood, who spent years shaping the sales talent strategy at Salesforce. Here's how he defines world-class performance and what he looks for in the people he hires.
So I think number one, which we've talked about around the lifelong learner, I'm going to sort of say combined with curiosity. So we can bucket that under curiosity. I don't know any top-level salespeople, successful salespeople that aren't just genuinely curious when they're working with their customers, right? They're going in there customer-centric, really interested in learning what's going on in that business, what are the challenges, and then eventually getting to, okay, now is there a way that we can help you? It starts with the customer and that curiosity around it. So I think the number one skill set for me is around that curiosity. Number 2 is the interpersonal skills and understanding how to utilize your resources. I think that selling more than ever as well is more and more a team game, especially, here at Salesforce, as we've scaled up the resources that a salesperson has available to them. Just a quick example, when we celebrate at the end of the year and you celebrate, the successes of the year, we bring people up on stage at, sales kickoffs and things like that. There's one example that just stuck out to me a few years ago. They bring up, 5 top deals, and they bring up the people that close those deals to celebrate them. And the first deal is sort of the smallest one, and then they get to the largest one at the end. The first deal, it's usually the AE, maybe an SE, and their manager. And then by the time you get to the really big deal, there are like 50 people on stage. You got customer success managers, you got multiple sales leaders, you got executives in there, right? So it's like you can be successful as a lone wolf or staying within a certain lane, but to really have that impact on your customers and fulfill vision, it's utilizing that resource and bringing people in to help you sell, I think is just such an impactful skill for individuals to have.
Difficult to come by and difficult to find in sales
100%, right? But it's a differentiator when you can find people that
I agree
can relinquish some of the role of selling to bring in partners, to bring in other resources. It's a game changer. And then I would say number 3, there is just an internal motor that is required in sales. And this won't come to a surprise probably to any of your listeners, but that ability to just grind and overcome adversity and overcome objections and just keep going, right, is something that we look for because it's so important. Sales is just such a difficult job to begin with. It's filled with rejection. A 30% close rate, let's say, is a great close rate on deals. That means 70% of the time you're failing, right? And that's okay. Like that is part of it. It's similar to baseball stats, right? I'm a big baseball fan. And it's like, if you're batting 300 as a baseball player, you're probably an all-star. But that means 7 out of 10 times you're not getting a hit. And sales isn't much different than that, right? That there is a lot of failure in it. And you have to be okay with that. And you have to learn from it. And you have to bounce back and figure out what the next step looks like. And I think that that's, again, an innate trait that people have that you can vet out and that you need to understand their level of tolerance around that as they come into these types of roles.
Next, we hear from Kendall Ryerson, Vice President of Sales for North America at Carestream. In this excerpt, she shares why optimism, accountability, and fearless action separate the good from the great.
Oh man, just 3, huh? Because they need to be great at so much. So personally, what I look for in those elite level salespeople is that optimism that I mentioned at the beginning, right? Because that helps you control your effort and your attitude, and everything comes back to how you approach every day, right? That day one mentality. I look for accountability. That's in my top 3. I want people that are not afraid to take some risks, calculated risks, and are also not afraid to fail or to make mistakes, because that's how you grow. We don't know everything. And I love risk takers that are not afraid to try something new and exciting and not be afraid to possibly fail. And that's okay. You pick yourself back up and you do it all over again. So the optimism, the accountability, and just generally you articulated it so well, the tension with the customers. I want somebody that's not afraid to ask the tough questions and somebody that's fearless. Fearlessness can come in many forms. Fearlessness can come in just approaching cold calls, right? And going into departments that you don't know anybody. That takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of bravery to go in and probably be chased out or rejected. But that fearlessness and that grit and that you can't teach somebody that. So you either have it or you don't. So those 3, I can teach you products, I can teach you finance, but those 3 things, the optimism, the accountability, and the fearlessness, those make an elite level salesperson. Because if you have those 3 things working in tangent, I mean, you're going to succeed no matter what industry you're in, what the environment around you is like. You're going to be a superstar with those 3 things.
I could not agree more with you.
Up next is Ford Williams, now Vice President of Commercial Sales at Redis, and formerly with ThoughtSpot. In this excerpt, Ford reflects on the habits and mindset that drive sales momentum and what separates reps who accelerate from those who stall. Here's Ford.
It's a great question. Something I think about all the time, especially when it comes to hiring, Harry. The first is an ability to generate revenue a company wouldn't have without them. A very fancy way of saying, do they have the ability to PG? Can they pipeline generate? Reps that can PG consistently, set outbound meetings consistently, the burden of their success, almost the onus for their success, actually passes on to their leader, right? If I have an individual who's setting a ton of outbound meetings, it's on us to be on their meetings, help lead those meetings, get them to the POC stage, et cetera. So one thing I always look for is someone that's hungry, not scared to pick up the phone, not scared to send that extra email. So frankly, ability to PG, right? That is the definition of a salesperson. Are you bringing in revenue the company wouldn't have without you? So that's my number 1. My number 2 is champion building. So when you do set a meeting and get into a sales cycle, no deal ever gets done without a champion, ever. Right? There is a champion internally, right? Definition of a champion is someone that has influence over the economic buyer and is selling on your behalf, right? There are stages to champion building: identifying one, building one, testing, and using or leveraging that champion. Right. Those are all important and they're probably worth their own podcast, the 4 stages of champion building. But many people, the best sellers I've ever met, have a unique ability to bring people to them, to attract people to them, to get people to want to work with them, to like them, get people to open up to them, both personally and professionally. And so the champion building is both a science and an art, but if you can champion build and that one I mentioned before, PG, you're going to be a great seller. The final one I look for is an ability to do deals early. Or urgency or speed, right? I, as a young seller, I made the mistake, Harry, of thinking, hey, when does it matter when I close a deal? I can close it this quarter or next quarter. I'm financially sound. It doesn't matter when it comes in. And that was so the wrong mindset, right? It's so important when you're working in an organization to think like an owner, think like the CEO. And the CEO, the CRO, they need to report their earnings quarterly to their board, whether it's a private venture-backed company, whether it's a family-owned company, whether it's a public company. Businesses operate on quarterly and annual cadences. right? Public company, it's 10Q and 10K, et cetera.
Right.
And if you aren't doing deals early, if you're not thinking creative, if you're not calling that extra person, if you're not tying incentives to do deal early, deals slip, and you work that up across all the sellers, numbers slip, quarter slip, and the company's not doing as well. One thing I always like to highlight to my team when I'm teaching this lesson is if a company brings in $1 billion over 10 years, that's interesting, I guess. If a company brings in $1 billion over a quarter, that's a very interesting company that a lot of people want to invest in.
Right.
And so time is a huge component of money. And I try to teach that because we should be doing everything early. We should be squeezing in a quarter. So a rep's ability and willingness to do things artificially early, even uncomfortably early, is the third thing I look for.
Our next guest is Lauren Cursiter, Global Marketing Communications Manager at Google. Lauren's work sits at the intersection of brand, messaging, and sales, and her response focuses on how communication style impacts sales performance. Let's hear what she had to say.
I think number one in 2025 is leading with empathy. I really think that there's a lot going on in the world right now. And I think at the end of the day, we're all humans here trying to make it work. So I think when you lead with empathy, I think that is an excellent way to just establish that rapport, establish that trust, and really then put yourself in your client's shoes. And I think that will force you to craft better questions and solutions and really get to a great outcome. So I think lead with empathy. I think curiosity. This is and leading with curiosity as well is, I think this will lead you also to what I kind of spoke about before. It's like that objection handling. I think all of that is core, just being a curious person and like avoiding those traditional sales that like moving into more tailored solutions, curiosity. So putting your curiosity hat on at the start of the day. And then I think leading to that is being is research. Maybe that one is such a exciting seeming term, but I think that all the things that I think we're leading into in 2025, it really comes down to like doing your homework and understanding who are those decision makers, what are the challenges that this company is facing, and like what can I do and my company do and the solution do to really solve for those. Because that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, is someone has a challenge and you are trying to solve that challenge with your solution. So how can you really understand the specifics and ins and outs of that challenge? So empathy, curiosity, research.
Love it.
Our next guest is Oliver Tate, Global Head of Growth Enablement at Dentsu. He reminds us that success in sales often comes down to mindset, curiosity, composure, and knowing when to challenge yourself. Here's Oliver.
There's two, and then there's one which is intangible. But I'll say, number one, it's discipline. The sellers, back to your triathlon training now. The people that invest in the time to be better. So they keep on top of their pipeline, they set their calls, they are rigorous about moving things down the pipe, they're rigorous about setting up appointments, they chase the customers, and they are very disciplined and focused in what they want to achieve. So they, back to begin with end in mind, know what you want to achieve, sticking to it. I see plenty of salespeople who are not particularly disciplined in what they've got. I think, sorry, that's my phone going. You have to cut this out to start again.
That's
so
all right.
I'll put it up. Yeah. So I think, three things. First thing is discipline. So we need salespeople who are disciplined and, it's going to go off again. I'm just going to hang up. You're right. Third time lucky. We'll cut it. Okay. So firstly, discipline, understanding what you want to achieve, staying on top of it, being rigorous in the way that you approach your sales, sticking to the process that you've got and not letting things slip. And, I don't play golf, but I know a lot of people, want to play golf on a Friday afternoon and getting off and just letting that go. The planned salesperson will, if they're going to go and play golf, they will make sure that their homework is done before they play. And that's something that I've seen. So absolute focus, discipline, personal discipline on top of it. Secondly is knowledge, understanding the market that you're in, understanding your customer, understanding the pressures that are there, and understanding how what you're proposing moves them forward. So what does it mean for your customer? So you need to understand everything that's around there and investing in that product knowledge piece and being there. The third thing, it's quite, it's that je ne sais quoi that some salespeople have. You walk in the room, some people, you look at them and they've got that charisma, they've got that little halo around them. People buy from people. And if you have those almost innate people skills that draw people to you, that helps as well. I'm not talking about being the slimy salesman that's there, but some people, you look at them and they've got some charisma, there's something around them, and that just eases them through. It's probably the secret sprinkle that's on the top. However, if you possess the discipline to succeed, if you invest in the knowledge that you need with your customer and what you're selling, then that's the icing on the cake. But some people just seem to have that as well. And whether they've learned it, whether they've practiced it, I don't know, but it's the thing that carries them through.
And I think that I couldn't agree more with you. Discipline, knowledge, and that extra little bit that, you called it charisma, could be aura, could be something that helps people to, to be curious. I always say this is not a difficult thing. Just be curious, want people to and help, want people to help them.
Yeah.
I think if you can do those two things truthfully and honestly, that's half of the rent. The rest comes with it.
Did he steal that from me? I think I stole it from somebody else. The old mantra is, always be closing. It's not. It's always be curious.
Always be curious. I think I got that from you. So there you go.
I probably stole it from somebody else, which is that whole sort of enabler's breaststroke. You just take it in and you share it out again. But it's absolutely true. I mean, closing's important, but making people feel wanted by asking them questions and understanding more about them helps with that relationship piece. Absolutely.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more with you.
And finally, we close with Kelly Magnaudeix, EMEA Sales Vice President at GE Healthcare. Kelly adds a fourth trait to his list because for him, 3 just isn't enough. His insights are a reminder that leadership and growth go hand in hand. Let's hear what Kelly had to say.
That is a very easy and complex question at the same time. I have met a lot of top salespeople in different environments. I'm always impressed by them, whoever they are. And I think it also depends on what you're selling. But I would say that the qualities that I'm more a fan of are the people who have great listening ability. And I can say that because I can confess sometimes I do not have enough listening abilities in the perception of how listening is defined in the sales or in the business schools. We are always talking about active listening. I would more talk about quality listening because I don't know what active listening really means. If it's a question of percentage, how much you talk, how much you listen, that's theory. But in real life, not people are robots. I can apply a recipe that replicates the same time. So I would more talk about quality listening is like how much do you get the essence of the conversation? What is the most important thing you need to remember in the end? So it's a link between active listening and how smart do you remember or do you listen what you're hearing? That's one thing. The second thing is the mapping ability in the complex world. That's what I'm talking about. It's just like when you enter a multi-decisionary sales process, making sure you know absolutely everyone. I'm not mean knowing them personally, but understanding who does what, where, and how, and then adapt your strategy to each individual and bring that into a collective decision making. But making sure you do not forget anyone, that there is no missing link. Elite salespeople have this amazing capacity to map this very rapidly and target one by one in an effective way. And the last thing for all salespeople, and I think this is really the difference between the very top, the good one, and the future good one, This is it. The capacity to know when to pull the pen in the discussion and to close the deal. I think this is the most simple move and the hardest one at the same time. It's just, when do you stop talking and when do you move into the signing decision? Because it's a bit like sometimes like a Western, you two cowboys looking at each other and the first one that makes the move loses. But it's sometimes I can clearly see that the most efficient ones are the ones who are leading so well the process, then they decide exactly when to pull the pen off and say, okay, that's the moment. Now we make the move. It's a tough, very tough thing. I think it's something you learn over the years. Some people have it naturally. They're extremely gifted, but otherwise this is something you learn over the year through your own self-confidence. But I would say that if you are extremely good listener, if you're able to map your sales process extremely well, and know who are the real decision makers, and you answer their needs or discover all their needs, and you're on top of that able to decide of the signing process, probably that puts you on the top of the scale. I try to be generic because after I think it also depends on which industry you're working on. But in my area, I would say I would hire. And if I can add a fourth one, and I do this mostly in my recruitments, I talked about that a bit previously. I need to see the sparkle in the eyes of the people that talk. If you are able to show that passion, if you are able to transfer that magic and show that everybody buys from something that loves what they're doing, it's a very standard move. So I would add that, but it's I think it's difficult to learn how to do that. A lot of people have that naturally. If you don't have it, try to find someone that has that or is able to express it and learn how to do something like this. And it doesn't have, it must not be fainted. It must not be fake. You have really to feel this, because otherwise it works completely the opposite way.
Absolutely love it. My lovely listeners, you've heard it here first from Kelly. This is really good. And you are, by the way, the first one who added the fourth one to my question of 3. So I appreciate it. That's great. So the first one was quality listening. The second one, the ability to map out the sales process to the actual buying process. The third one was really the capacity to progress to a close and know when that is and pull the trigger. And you got to have passion all around it.
Whether you're a CRO, a frontline rep, or somewhere in between, the message is clear. Elite salespeople think differently, act intentionally, and never stop learning. If you enjoyed this compilation, you can find the full conversations with each guest and dozens more at b2bsalestrends.com. And don't forget to follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back next week with our official 50th episode. See you then.